For spine-chilling true night shift tales that expose sinister secrets and terrifying happenings, Sarah felt the fluorescent lights flicker ominously above her head as she donned her scrubs in the hospital break room. The late shift was familiar yet unsettling, a cycle of patient cries and frantic heartbeats. But tonight felt different. A cold dread settled in her stomach as she stepped onto the polished linoleum floors. The eerie stillness of the emptied emergency room was stifling, the past echoing in the silence. Whispers brushed against her ears, faint at first, but soon transformed into hushed conversations that seemed to pulse through the sterile hallways. It sent a shiver down her spine. Who was there? Was it the fatigue playing tricks on her? The tiredness of the day had lingered like a thick fog. Shaking it off, she focused instead on her patients, her children, a constant reminder of why she was there. Yet, the feeling that she was not alone grew stronger. She caught movement at the edge of her vision but found nothing but shadows stretching into the darkness. Just the night shift, she whispered to herself, half-heartedly convincing herself. That was when Carl, the grizzled security guard, brushed past her. His all-too-watchful eyes sent a jolt through her. Something was not right with him. Her anxiety bubbled as a fellow nurse vanished without a trace. She heard whispered conversations among the staff, and their eyes darted nervously to the empty halls. Then the text came. "Mom! There's a man in the shadows outside." Lily's frantic words made her heart race. Panic seized her, melding with a feeling she couldn't shake. Was her neighborhood hiding something? The friendly faces she'd once trusted began to turn cold, their smiles morphing into something sinister. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah's instincts kicked into overdrive. One evening, as she navigated through the lifeless, echoing corridors, she overheard snippets of conversations, words wrapped in urgency and dread. They whispered of a community gathering. The service, as it was called, promised unity and support, but what was the price? Was it worth her children's safety? As each night drudged on and shadows whispered her name, unease deepened. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The urgency escalated with each passing night. When a neighbor's door closed hastily in her face, a nerve broke. Here was community discord covered in fear. A sinister undercurrent thrummed beneath the surface, and Sarah became the outlier, the only one trying to connect the dots. Her investigation led her to a hidden room beneath the hospital, stocked with unsettling photographs and articles linking people to the service. Each piece promised a horrifying revelation. Just as she grasped the connection, the lights above flickered violently, plunging her into darkness. In that suffocating silence, Sarah felt the weight of Carl's eyes again, now looming dangerously close. Panic swept her like a tidal wave, and the shadows beckoned her deeper into their grasp. What were they waiting for? With the pulse of her heart pounding in her ears, Sarah felt the shadows grow bolder, almost alive. She stood at a precipice, trapped between the lives of her children and the monstrous truths that lurked out there. In a world draped in darkness, the choice loomed. Do she confront the whispers chasing her or flee to protect her precious children? The whispers beckoned, growing louder, screaming for her attention. It was only a matter of time before they claimed her in a chilling embrace. Adrenaline surged through Sarah as darkness engulfed her, a living entity thrumming with malevolence. She could barely think, her instincts screeching for her to flee. But where? The anger pulsed eerily, borders blurring between reality and nightmare. She could hear Carl's footsteps echoing as he prowled closer, deliberate and unnervingly calm. "Why do you ignore us, Sarah?" The voice was twisted, yet familiar. It could have been anyone's. A cold wave of dread washed over her. The shadows seemed to melt into one, a grotesque figure coiling around the edges of her mind. Heart racing, she had to make a choice. Could she confront the whispers or would she vanish among them, just like the others? With every ounce of courage, she took a step forward, against the tide of terror pulling at her. "What do you want?" she called out, her voice trembling but resolute. She regretted it the moment she did. The shadows thickened, forming into twisted shapes that laughed softly, taunting. "Your children are safe, for now," said the figure assembled from darkness, its voice rippling like water. It stepped forward, revealing the sickly glow of Carl's eyes. "But what price must you pay for their safety?" Fear clawed at her throat. The thought of her children filled her mind, their innocent faces shimmering through her desperation. She forced herself to breathe, the air feeling stale and heavy around her. "What is the service?" she challenged, driven by an urgent need for answers. The shadows responded by stretching into grotesque shapes, reflecting her fear and confusion. The figure flicked a hand, and an image bloomed in the air: a community gathering, laughter, smiles like wolves in sheepskins. Then a sharp cut to a darkened hall, cries of anguish suffocating under a weight she couldn't see. "They offer comfort, Sarah. Just a choice to be made." The room spun. Shadows crowded nearer, pressing in like a vice. She had to stay focused. What choice? To remain, or to join? Every word dripped with darkness. The figure leaned closer, its breath cold. "Stay hidden. Become one of us. Or expose the truth and lose everything." The vision of Lily's frightened expression filled her mind again. A mother's instinct surged: she would never abandon her children. "I want to be a part of your lives," she shouted defiantly, determination growing in her chest. At that moment, the shadows recoiled. The flickering light sputtered back to life, revealing Carl, whose vacant gaze transformed into fury. The room pulsed, vibrating with tension as he lunged toward her. Sarah bolted, sprinting past the gaping doorway. Footfalls thundered behind her, a haunting soundtrack to her desperation. She dashed through the hospital corridor, each fluorescent light flickering more violently as if in agony. "Run, Sarah!" a voice echoed in her mind. But where to? She heard whispers again, this time distinct words clawing at her sanity. "Join us! Join us!" A flash of movement caught her eye. She glanced toward a locker room, a potential sanctuary. With a burst of adrenaline, Sarah dove inside, slamming the door behind her. Breathless, she let her back slide down, heart thundering like a drum in her ears. The whispers outside grew louder, insistent. "You'll never escape your fate." And then, a chilling silence followed, the kind that screamed for a reckoning. Was it truly over? Or was this just the beginning? In the wavering stillness, there was a knock, light, insistent, mocking. "Sarah, let us in." It was a voice, all too familiar, and filled with a promise of terror. What could they want now? With each desperate heartbeat, reality twisted around her. Was it really her choice anymore? The silence pressed hard against her ears, filling the locker room with a sense of suffocation. Sarah's heart raced, pounding a frantic beat in her chest. Each knock echoed sharply, a metronome of impending dread. "Sarah, let us in." It was Carl's voice, sweet and sinister. It laced through the air, wrapping around her like a cold coil. She held her breath, clutching her knees to her chest, trying to make herself small. The dim light outlined the lockers in sharp relief, shadows darting around the corners. Every whisper outside felt like a storm gathering strength, swirling around her, beckoning her to open the door. "What do you want?" she called out, her voice quaking. Anger bubbled inside her but swiftly turned into fear, a hollow pit in her stomach. They had already taken so much from her. The thought of losing her children pushed her to the brink. "Just a chat, Sarah." "Open up," came Carl's voice, softer this time, taunting. "We only want to help. You know that. You can't hide forever." The shadows flickered in her mind, recalling their sinister promises. Safety? How much safety came at a cost? She hadn't forgotten the faces twisted in dance, their laughter an echo that sliced through the dimness. With trembling hands, she fumbled for her phone, the lifeline she'd held onto through this nightmare. The screen flickered and glowed, lighting up the cramped space enough for her to see the door's outline. 2 missed calls from Lily's flashed back at her, a reminder of her unresolved ache, of the looming danger. "Mommy!" A cry echoed in her head, a plea and a warning intertwined. "Stay away from them, Lily's!" Sarah yelled suddenly, her heart shuddering as she pressed the phone to her ear. Her pulse quickened, the fear of exposing her children clawing at her. Such fire, Sarah. We love the fire, Carl crooned, sending chills down her spine. The familiar voice now felt tainted with something dark, as if the shadows were dripping from his lips. You think your children are safe? You think you can just run? The door rattled again, more forcefully this time, as if an invisible hand were trying to wrench it open. Give them to us, and we'll keep them safe. It's simple. Just say yes. Just let us in. But the more they spoke, the deeper the dread seeped into her bones. What kind of deal demanded surrender? What kind of help required a sacrifice? She had learned that too well in this twisted game. No! She screamed, her voice rocketing off the metal walls. Silence followed, laden with threat. The air thickened as she felt the shadows swell outside the door, pressing against her with an insidious hunger, whispering secrets she could barely comprehend. She knew they would claw their way in. They always did. Then a thought struck her. What if she turned the tables? What if she used their own words against them? Clenching her fists, Sarah shouted, I'll expose you. I will tell everyone about the service. A moment of stunned silence stretched long and taut as if even the shadows recoiled at her defiance. Then, Carl's voice returned, smoother and chillingly calm. You wouldn't dare. Everything you know will crumble. It will bite you back, Sarah. You can't escape us. With that, the door thumped violently, splintering her determination. Panic gripped her. The whispers grew louder, each one threading doubt into her heart, drowning her resistance. The locker room suddenly felt less like refuge and more like a prison. She needed an escape route. Swiftly, she searched for a way out, something to hold on to as the walls closed in that moment of frantic searching, her fingers brushed against something cold and sharp, a hidden emergency exit. Gritting her teeth, she stood tall despite the heaviness wrapping around her mind. Desperation surged through her as she could almost hear her children's laughter mingling with the suffocating darkness outside. Without thinking, she kicked the emergency door open. The fresh air slapped against her face like a promise of freedom, but also something else, a warning. Beyond the door, mist curled in shadowy tendrils, revealing a landscape that felt off-kilter, unnatural. What lay ahead, she couldn't yet see, but the whispers were distant now, still calling, still pleading. Only one thing was certain, she was no longer the hunted. With every step into the unknown, she could already feel the dark shapes reform as they trailed behind her, but their growing distance gave her hope she desperately needed to clutch onto what awaited her just beyond the mist. It was an answer she feared to discover. The mist swirled around her ankles, chilling her bones as Sarah stepped further into the unknown. The air was thick, almost like a heavy fog, pulling her into its depths. She squinted against the creeping shadows, straining to see what lay just beyond her reach. Each breath was ragged, the guilty knowledge of her children's vulnerability gnawing at her resolve. Just keep moving, she whispered to herself, feeling madness creep at the edges of her sanity. The mist parted slightly ahead, revealing a path that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. With every step, it felt as if the world behind her faded, leaving echoes of Carl's voice ringing in her ears. The thought of turning back curled her guts like a vice. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Panic surged as she spun her head, heart racing. The shadows shifted, teasing her from the corners of her vision. Were they closing in? Did they see her? Sarah, a soft, coaxing whisper floated to her, and she shivered. It could have been her imagination, or perhaps a figment of the horrors chasing her. She pressed on, desperation forcing her feet forward. The terrain morphed beneath her, a treacherous landscape bound in shadow. Trees with gnarled branches clawed at the sky, their silhouettes twisted and tortured. Suddenly, the ground broke beneath her, a hidden chasm yawning like an open mouth. Careful now, the whisper came again, low and knowing. It wrapped around her, chilling her flesh. She felt watched, hunted. Struggling to maintain her balance, she edged sideways along the precipice, her muscles taut. Is this what freedom looks like? She muttered, squeezed by doubt. Then she saw it, a faint light glimmering in the distance, not warm but a sickly greenish hue, pooling like a blighted hope. It beckoned her like a lighthouse to a ship in distress, urging her to its glow. What if it's a trap? A voice within her trembled at the thought. She hesitated, heart caught between fight and flight. That light could be an illusion, crafting promises that thread back into the grip of her nightmares. But the thought of retreating to the locker room, of Carl's chilling voice, haunted her like a ghost. With a surge of defiance, she began to move toward it, each step both empowered and terrifying. As she approached, the edges of the light flickered, casting ghostly shapes that seemed to dance in joy. She could feel the shadows behind her writhing, angry and frustrated, raging against her defiance. "Sarah! You're so close!" That dreadful voice of Carl now sounded behind her, laced with the sweet poison of honeyed promises. "Come back! We can protect you! You can't trust the light!" It stopped her cold. Memories of her children flooded her mind's soft giggles, warm embraces, the chaotic mess of their lives together. She knew she had to choose. The shrill laughter from the shadows burst forth, mocking her, wrapping tightly around her throat, throttling her resolve. "You think they're safe from us?" Josh, her youngest, flashed before her eyes, bright and innocent. "Mommy, help!" echoed in her skull. She sprinted towards the light. It enveloped her, a haunting beauty illuminating the chaos around her. Within its glow, she glimpsed figures, a group, disconnected yet whole, faces blurred but undeniably familiar. Faces of those she had lost. "No," she gasped, pain crushing her heart. Suddenly, the chasm trembled, and in horror, Sarah realized it was widening, threatening to swallow her whole. "No! Get away from them!" she screamed, battling the instinct to flee into darkness. As the figures in the light reached for her, the ground beneath began to crumble, time stretched as she faced the twisted shadows behind her. Would she save herself or reach for those she loved? In that moment of clarity, Sarah took a deep breath and leaped towards the figures in the glow, believing against all odds, but just as she reached them, everything shattered around her, darkness engulfing her once more, leaving her with one haunting question: had she chosen too late? A chilling laugh echoed in the abyss, pulling at the seams of reality. The whispers were louder now, drowning her hopes. What awaited her in the depths that had claimed so many before? The darkness swallowed her whole, wrapping around Sarah like a shroud. She fell through layers of blackness, the chill biting deeper than the mist had. Silence pressed in, heavy and sickening, until it was shattered by the bone-deep howls of unseen things. Panic clawed at her throat. "Where am I?" She gasped into the void as if it might answer. But only the echoes of her voice returned, twisted with disdain. Was she truly alone? Then, flickers of movement returned. Shapes darted past, blurred shadows just out of reach, skirting the edges of her vision. They slithered forward and retreated, circling her like wolves testing prey. She couldn't tell if they were friend or foe, but one thing was certain: they craved her fear. Mustering every ounce of courage, Sarah took a step. The ground felt unstable beneath her, constantly shifting. A grotesque laughter erupted around her, sending waves of dread crashing against her rational mind. "Do you think you can escape?" A voice wafted through the air, huskier, more sinister than before. Something scraped against the edge of her sanity. The name it called sent tremors through her heart. "Sarah!" She fought against it. "Leave me alone." Her voice quaked, but she pressed on, desperate for any sign of light or clarity. No more distractions. But the shadows swarmed, unsettling vibrations thrumming in the air. Why trust the darkness when you can join the light? A whimper echoed, warping into a mocking taunt. "They're waiting for you. Waiting to take you back." A shiver chased down her spine. Memories of children laughed and played, a fading warmth wrapped around her. She stumbled as images swirled Josh's bright laughter, his tiny hands tugging at her, squealing for her attention. "Mommy! Stop it!" She screamed, clenching her eyes shut, but the visions were relentless, weaving into her thoughts, clawing for dominance. As she stood paralyzed in the swirling shadows, they began to tighten around her like a vice. Fingers of the darkness grazed her, cold enough to suck the breath from her lungs. She gasped and turned, every weak impulse fought against the suffocating grip of despair closing in. Then she noticed it, a glimmer. Almost imperceptible, like a pinprick in the fabric of the deadly blackness. Could it be a way out? Or a false hope? No. She shook her head, desperation coursing through her. I won T let you win. With renewed strength, she fought against the tendrils of dark, forcing her legs to move towards the light. Sarah! The voices rose in a cacophony of rage. You can't escape, you fool. You're just prolonging the inevitable. I won T believe you. She shouted defiantly, racing towards the speck of light. But as she neared it, the blinding brightness exploded around her, a dazzling web that pulled and tugged at her senses. Was it salvation or punishment? In a moment suspended between chaos and clarity, she leaped. The world shifted violently, and for an instant, she could see her children's faces swimming in the glow. They reached for her, smiles so wide they nearly blinded her with happiness. Mommy, help us! But just as quick as the brightness enveloped her, it darkened again, twisting the light into shadows once more. Chaos erupted within her, a tempest of dread and hope smashing together. The laughter returned, taunting, cruel. Do you think they want you back? They will let you down, just like before. Their whispers snowballed into a growl, circling around her, tightening, strangling her with their malevolence, and in that desperate moment, as Sarah fought off the encompassing darkness and grasped for her children, she suddenly found herself standing in a hallway, eerily familiar. The air was colder, the walls echoing with the memories of 1,000 regrets. Then she saw a door at the end, cracked open slightly, light spilling out, a beacon in the suffocating gloom. Way out or another trap? She murmured, the question hanging heavy in the air, chilling her further. But another chilling sound reached her ears, one far worse than the shadows, mocking heavy footsteps approaching what awaited her beyond that door. Would it be salvation or doom? The footsteps grew louder, each slap against the floor echoing through the hallway like a countdown. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the whispers that clawed at her mind. She glanced back, but the shadows had coalesced into a thick wall, blocking any escape. Don't look back, she breathed in a shaky whisper, forcing herself to concentrate on the door. With trembling hands, she reached out to the knob. It felt warm amidst the chill, contrasting the icy dread wrapping around her limbs. She turned it slowly, the hinges creaking in protest as if warning her against what lay ahead. A gust of stale air rushed out, carrying the scent of dust and decay. Sarah hesitated, scanning the room beyond the door. It was a small space, dimly lit, with flickering fluorescent lights casting skeletal shadows against the walls. Old photographs framed in cracked glass were strewn about, capturing moments of laughter she couldn't bear to look at. Mommy, the soft, familiar voice sent a jolt through her. It was Josh, right there, surrounded by the soft glow of the light. Her breath caught in her throat, but fear posed an obstacle. She didn't know if trusting illusions would save her or lead her deeper into the maw of darkness. Josh, she gasped, stepping through the threshold. But as she did, the cheerful atmosphere morphed into something sinister. The laughter echoed, warped and mocking, blending with the fading whispers from the shadows. The once welcoming space closed around her, walls bending and shifting, memory and illusion warping together like a sickening kaleidoscope. Josh's form blurred. She felt an icy grip on her shoulder, something she couldn't see but knew was lurking just behind her. No! She swung around, adrenaline surging, ready to confront her pursuer. But the doorway before her slammed shut, the rattling echoing like shackles closing around her mind. A freezing breath brushed against her neck, sending a wave of terror crashing over her. You think you can find him here? The sinister voice crooned, now practically in her ear. Your little boy? He has gone just like the rest. No, please. She cried out, her heart fluttering wildly as the air thickened. Let him go. I can take him back. A cruel laugh erupted, a sound that danced on her sanity. The walls of the room pulsated with dark energy, shadows spilling forth like ink. She could barely see, hope dwindled with every second, leaving only panic in its place. Pushing against the cold seeping into her bones, Sarah clawed her way back to the door, grasping the handle with white knuckles. It wouldn't budge. The shadows wrapped around her hands like constricting snakes, pulling her deeper into their cold embrace. She closed her eyes, summoning the strength of every prayer she whispered in desperation. Not like this. The resolve surged through her like a wildfire, and she kicked at the door, feeling the vibrations quaking through her soul. The door shuddered slightly, then flew open, but it revealed nothing but swirling darkness again, a void that threatened to swallow her whole. She stumbled back, gasping. "What do you want from me?" She screamed into the abyss, but no answer came. "That's the question, isn't it?" A voice hissed, brushing against her ear like rancid breath. "What are you willing to sacrifice to save them?" A bone-chilling realization struck her. The choice between the children she loved and the power the shadows promised hovered heavily in the very air she breathed. Heart racing, she took a deep, shaky breath. "I will not sacrifice anything. Not again." The shadows roared in fury, the sound was suffocating, pressing down upon her, and for a moment she thought she might pass out, but then, another voice broke through, faint but familiar. "Sarah, it was Josh. You're almost here." "Josh," she screamed, breaking through the dark. In that moment, all she needed to do was believe in the love that tied them together. She darted toward the source of the voice. But what would await her when she reached it? Would love be enough to sever the dark? Or had she already stepped too far into the abyss? A swirl of fear and determination roiled within her as she hurled herself forward, desperate for salvation. The darkness enveloped her again, but she pushed through, ready to confront whatever nightmare awaited her on the other side. The darkness wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, heavy and cloying, pressing against her chest. Sarah felt her heart pound in her ears, a frantic tattoo as fear clawed at her sanity. She stretched out her arms blindly, grasping for something, anything that might anchor her in this maddening void. But nothing kept her steady. No walls, no floor. Just endless shadow absorbing all light and hope. "Mommy," the voice lured her deeper into the black, almost melodic but mixed with despair. It was Josh's voice, full of innocence yet tinged with a disturbance that sent shivers down her spine. Where was he? "Josh!" she shouted, panic rising with every hollow echo of his name. Could she trust the shadows, the whispers? Were they twisting her memories, feeding off her fears? Desperation coursed through her as she fought against the weight of the darkness. Suddenly, the silhouettes around her morphed, taking on eerie shapes. Figures shifted, danced, their eyes blacker than the abyss itself. They seemed to smile, but there was no joy in their expressions, only hunger. "Come play with us, Sarah," they jeered, their voices layering over one another, a cacophony of torment. "We've missed you. Get away!" she screamed, the words tearing from her throat. Each syllable was a battle against the darkness that wanted to swallow her whole. She spun, hoping to catch a glimpse of some exit, but it was endless, a nightmare with no escape. Then, a flicker of light in the distance caught her eye. Hope surged. She ran toward it, pushing through the shadows that clawed at her. But every step felt heavier, as if the darkness was trying to hold her back, wrap her in its lingering touch. Sarah, the voice of her son called again, more urgent this time, desperate. "Mommy, help me. I'm scared." With newfound determination, she surged forward. The light grew stronger as she drew closer, illuminating her path. But the sinister figures whispered louder now, wrapping around her like chains. "You can't save him. You'll lose everything." "But I want he." She cried out, burying her fear deep, allowing the love for her child to spark her will like a flame against the night. The flickering light narrowed into a beam, and suddenly, she found herself in an empty room, filled with remnants of a nightmare. An old rocking chair creaked in the corner, swaying as if someone had just left it. A sense of familiarity washed over her. The room felt like the one from their old house. "Josh?" she whispered, panic sinking with hope. "Are you here?" Silence hung heavy, but it was broken by soft sobs echoing off the walls. Sarah rushed toward the sound, her breath quickening. She could feel the warmth of the light now, wrapping around her. It was real. "Mommy!" The cry was grounded and gut-wrenching. It came again, but it was different this time. Choked, desperate. And then she saw him, a small figure huddled in the corner, almost hidden in the shadows but surrounded by that warm glow she craved. "Josh!" she cried, scrambling toward him. But just as she reached out, a force pushed against her. Invisible hands gripped her wrists, pulling her back, dragging her away from him. "No!" she screamed, her heart racing. "Let me go!" The figures loomed larger, their laughter becoming a deafening roar. They twisted her memories, feeding off the desperation in her eyes. "Do you really want him back?" they taunted. "What if he is not the same?" "Josh!" she shrieked. "I'm coming. I won't leave you." The hands tightened around her, eliciting panic. Frantically, she pulled against their grip. Gritting her teeth, she felt the flicker of a plan forming. "What if I didn't care about the cost?" she shouted defiantly, her voice piercing through the chaotic din. "What if I accepted what you demand?" Cheers erupted from the figures, their delight ghostly and wrong. "Do you really understand what that means?" As they tightened their hold, a flash of understanding pierced through. No, she wouldn't bargain. She wouldn't succumb. Instead, she would fight, no matter the cost. With renewed vigor, she screamed with all her might, "I will not fear. I will not break." The shadows flinched, their grip slackening for a moment. The light around Josh pulsed, shimmering like hope. He was closer now. She seized the chance. With one determined thrust, she broke free and dashed toward him. The figures wailed in fury, a sound so terrifying it felt like ice slicing through her heart. But it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was Josh. She lunged forward, arm outstretched, but darkness surged like a wave, crashing over her, pulling her back into their depths. The air was thick with dread as the shadows whispered promises of despair. "You've made your choice," but she felt it, the spark, the tether of love. "Josh!" she roared, pushing against the void, "I'm right here. Hold on." And then, all went black, her soul caught in the storm of anguish. As silence descended, the weight of darkness hung heavily. But somewhere in that vast emptiness, a flicker of light still pulsed, a heartbeat waiting to be reached. What remained now was the choice. Would she plunge into the depths to save him, no matter the cost, or was it already too late? The silence felt like a scream pressed down into the darkness. Sarah's mind spun, grappling with the void, and she felt the air grow thick with a pressing weight. Time stretched, or perhaps it had stopped altogether, as she drifted in the ocean of shadow. But just when despair threatened to snap her resolve, something shifted. A murmur subtle, like the rustle of leaves on a windless night. "Help me!" It was Josh again, his voice breaking through the darkness like shards of glass. Each syllable pulled her taut, like a bowstring ready to snap. She opened her mouth to call out, the sound lost in the winding silence. Just then, a gust of cold air swept past her, swirling wildly, stirring the shadows around her like ink in water. The figures were back, their shapes swirling, their grins now grotesque masks of excitement. "Did you think you could escape us?" they cooed, their voices dripping with malice. "Leave me alone!" she shouted, her voice quaking. Every strain of her body yearned for Josh, for the warmth of his small hand, for the comfort of his laughter. Yet, the shadows slapped her words back, drowning them before they could echo through the abyss. "Mommy, please." The urgency in Josh's voice thickened the air around her, wrapping her heart in a vice. Panic surged again, but Sarah steeled herself. She couldn't break now. She had come too far. "Josh! I'm coming!" she cried, charging into the darkness, grasping at the feel of the air that was so thick with horror, every heartbeat drumming in her ears like funeral bells. She would not let those things take him from her, not again. The shadows writhed, creating barriers that twisted and turned, leading her deeper into sinister nooks. She stumbled, feet slipping as she navigated through the heady darkness. Suddenly, a blinding flash broke through, a searing beam cutting across the void, illuminating everything for a heartbeat. The figures shrieked, their ghastly forms flickering like bad reception on an old television. For that instant, shadows lost their grip. "Mommy! In here!" Josh's voice shattered the tension, breaking through the static. The light pulsed once more, revealing a door at the other end of the room, cracked open with warmth spilling through like honey. Sarah dashed toward it, every muscle protesting, but she felt an unseen force pulling at her ankles, clutching at her heels. She could see his silhouette at the threshold. "Hold on, Josh. I'm coming." She screamed, the desperation igniting fire in her veins. With a raw grunt, she tore free from the last remnants of Shadow's grasp, propelling herself toward that light. As she reached the door, an icy grip locked around her wrist, a last-ditch effort from the darkness to keep her tethered. "Your choice, Sarah," the figures taunted, laughter echoing like a choir of lost souls. "Would you sacrifice it all?" In that moment, she felt the weight of her emotions crashing down: fear, love, and an insatiable need. Could she bear the cost? Would their accusations unravel her resolve? With a wrenching cry, she yanked her arm free, tearing through the fabric of what held her. "I don't care. I want him." She slammed through the door, light flooding her senses, the screams of the figures thunderously echoing behind her, gnashing at her sanity. "Mommy!" Josh called, relief flooding his voice. But as she burst into that warm embrace, she froze. It wasn't their old house. It wasn't home at all. The walls were splattered with shadows, and the air tasted like salt. "Josh?" She looked down at her son, now pale, a strange light shimmering in his eyes. Are you okay?" "I'm scared, Mommy." The innocence in his voice cut deep, yet something felt off, an echo of the shadows pulsing through him. "Mommy?" His expression began to shift, contorting into that grotesque smile she had feared before. "You've come to play." The warmth of her heart turned to ice as realization washed over her. She had saved him, or had she? The room trembled, and the laughter of the shadows echoed louder, wrapping around her like the darkness once did. "Josh!" She screamed, but ballads of dread began to swirl, pulling her into an abyss once more. The sinister figures were here again, hungry and relentless, circling her like vultures. You made your choice, now face the consequence. As she braced herself for another fight, Sarah understood that this battle was far from over. What had she brought back with her, and would she ever escape this waking nightmare? The shadows began to close in. How could one choice unravel everything? The shadows converged, a suffocating wave of darkness that engulfed everything in its path. Sarah felt the weight of despair crush her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Josh's transformation was too sudden, too disjointed. The innocent child she knew was fading, replaced by this thing, this mockery of her son. "Josh?" she whispered, fear threading through her voice. He stood there, blue eyes gleaming eerily, skin glowing with an unnatural light. "Please, say something, anything." His voice dripped with a sickly sweet tone, now unrecognizable. "Are you scared?" "Yes." She snapped, desperation igniting her. "I'm scared." "Where is my boy? What have you done to him?" Laughter erupted from all sides, cruel and mocking. The figures, swarming around her, distorted and twisted, their shapes shifting with the shadows. "You made your choice," they sang, their voices a terrifying harmony. "You chose to play." Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her chest like a trapped bird. She spun, seeking an escape, but there was none. The door she had just come through was now swallowed by darkness. The walls of this room, coated in shadows, pulsed as if alive, breathing alongside her mounting terror. I can fix this." Panic surged through her veins. The air crackled with energy that made her skin tingle. "I can save you, Josh." "Save?" His grin widened, stretching unnaturally across his face. "But Mommy, this is who I am now." He took a step closer, his unexpected movement crashing into her like a tidal wave. She stumbled back, her heels kicking against the unseen force gripping her. "No. No. You're my son. We can go home. We can find a way back." Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the salt of her own despair. "Home?" The figures cooed, their fingers extended toward her, beckoning her into their mass. "You're already here with us forever." The weight of their promise hung in the air, a bitter threat. As they gathered, they reached for her, their gnarled hands grazing her skin like ice. With each chilling touch, a wave of memories rushed at her: Josh's laugh, his innocence, the safety of their home filled with light. "No! You can't take that away." She fought, but the shadows wrapped around her, a tightening embrace threatening to crush every hope she had left. Mommy. Josh's voice softened, an echo of the child he once was. Don't you want to play? No. I want you back. She pleaded, the once warm glow of motherhood now snuffed out by desperate realization. In a sudden flash, she remembered the light that broke through before. It had scorched her vision yet gave her hope. Could she summon that light again? With all her strength, Sarah pulled from the depths of her soul. Josh! I need you! She screamed, squeezing her eyes shut and envisioning the overwhelming warmth enveloping them both. Come back to me. I will fight. From the depths of her heart, she ignited a light, feeling it pulse within her. The shadow screeched, recoiling, seeking refuge from the brilliance she conjured. Mommy! No! Josh's demeanor flickered, the unnatural glow dimming as he fought against the shadows entwining him. She could almost see the real him struggling beneath the surface, but the shadows roared back, energy swirling like a cyclone, threatening to drown her out. You think you can defy us? You belong here. Yet she pushed harder, determination fueling every ounce of power. I do not belong to you. In that moment, it felt as if the world teetered on the brink. A single choice to retreat into darkness or to fight for light danced in the balance. Sudden stillness enveloped her as she braced herself, feeling the ground shift beneath her feet. The shadows were retreating. But what price would she pay to reclaim her son? As she risked everything, the air crackled ominously, filled with uncertainty. Are you ready to play? The figures hissed, their twisted voices rising with an unsettling glee. And just like that, she found herself at a crossroads, decide to save her son or fall into despair. As Sarah struggled between light and shadow, one question stood unyielding: would this light be enough to shatter the shadows for good, or would she lose everything in the fight? The shadows writhed as if alive, recoiling from the pulse of light Sarah summoned inside her. The darkness thrashed, furious at the intrusion. You can't escape what you've chosen. They screamed in unison, their voices rising to a fever pitch, a cacophony of rage and despair. Watch me! Sarah shouted back, her chest swelling with determination. She could feel Josh's essence flickering like a candle fighting to stay alight, the boy beneath the darkness striving for dominance. I will fight for you. I won to lose you. The warmth bloomed within her, bursting forth like a supernova, and the shadows screamed again, recoiling, tangled in their own bitterness. You're playing with fire, little mother. We love your sacrifice. You'll lose everything. But Sarah stood firm, the all-consuming love for her son igniting her even more. Not if I have a say in this, she cried, pushing forward. The growing light danced nimbly around her, illuminating the room and revealing the shadows' distorted forms, contorted in agonized supplication. With every ounce of will, she reached out towards Josh, who stood frozen, caught in the tumult of darkness and light. Josh! It's me! Mommy is here. You can fight this. She called, her voice a lifeline threading through the chaos. His eyes flickered, a spark of recognition breaking through the malevolence. Mommy? He whispered, his small voice filled with confusion and longing. Help me. Hold on. Sarah extended her arms wide, enveloping his silhouette in her light, willing him to grasp onto it. The shadows surrounding him clawed at her, trying to drag him into their chilling depths, but she pressed on, her heart pounding like a drum within her chest. Don't you see? The shadows pounced, growing bold in their desperation. He belongs to the darkness now. You cannot return. But as Sarah's light pressed against the encroaching night, Josh's features began to shimmer, the shadows retreating from her embrace, revealing the terrified boy within. She could see him, he was there, fighting. I believe in you. She shouted, pouring all her hope into her voice. The darkness howled, a furious wind swirling around them, whipping through the air. You will regret this transgression. We will take everything. No! Sarah screamed with a fierce cry, her light bursting brighter, illuminating every corner of the room. You don't control us. With one final surge, she lunged toward Josh, wrapping her arms tightly around him. The shadows lashed out, screaming as they clawed desperately at the bond of love that anchored them. But she would not yield. Fight with me. We can break free together," she urged as she felt the warmth of his small body against her. The shadows shrieked, chaotic and frenzied, as the light enveloped them completely. In that moment, the room cracked, fracturing reality around them. The darkness began to shred apart, shadows disintegrating into nothingness, a turbulent whirlwind that shattered under the brilliant blaze of her love. "Mommy!" Josh cried, and she felt him press tightly against her, face buried in her shoulder, trembling. She held him tighter, fear surging through her, but there was no turning back now. "I'm here, baby, I've got you," she whispered through tears, relief crashing down as she felt the remnants of shadow fade from their surroundings. And then, as she pulled back to gaze at her son's face, he looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes, bright and clear, the glow of love restored. "Mommy, is it over?" It took a moment of deep breaths, the tang of victory rushing to her head. "Yes. Yes, it's over." The echoes of despair fell away as dawn broke through the shadows, slicing through the remnants of night, drawing them back into nothing. The room shifted, transformed, becoming a safe haven rather than a prison. Sarah glanced around, the chaos dissolving into serene clarity. This was home, the soft light of the rising sun pouring through the windows, illuminating everything with hope. They were free. Jumping into her arms, Josh laughed, the sound pure and untarnished. The weight of fear lifted, leaving her lighthearted. "We did it, Mommy. We beat them." She smiled, tears of joy flowing freely. "Yes, we did. And we always will." As they embraced, Sarah felt a weight drop within her, the echoes of the service dissipating into the ether. She could finally breathe, knowing that they could move forward, leaving behind the shadows that tempted despair. "Let us go home," she whispered, kissing the top of Josh's head. Together, they stepped into the bright new day, leaving behind the remnants of their nightmare, determined to forge ahead into the light. The whispers of the dark receded, replaced by the sweet song of a hopeful heart reclaiming its joy. The world felt new and bright, filled with promise. Sarah knew they would face whatever lay ahead together. But the battle against shadows was not always done. A distant murmur brushed against her thoughts. Did they enjoy the taste of fear? Time would tell. As long as they carried love in their hearts, nothing could darken their journey, and as they walked into the sunrise, a glimmer of hope danced across the horizon, proof that love could conquer all. Don't miss out on this unforgettable story. If you enjoyed this journey, you need to subscribe now and turn on all notifications, so you won't miss the next thrill. Smash the like button now to show your love and help us feed the algorithm. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the conclusion. Your thoughts matter more than you know. Finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this journey. Every like and share is a chance to spread hope. Don't wait even one more second to support. You are the lifeblood of this channel.